Welcome to The Space, a virtual show that focuses on Africa's contributions to knowledge. I have been fortunate to have met and even worked with so many amazing people of African descent, composers of African operas and art music, visual artists, museum curators, creators of experiential media and virtual productions, choreographers, musicians, art collectors, and cultural specialists who succinctly explain Africa's contributions to knowledge. Join me once a month at the Space to learn more about how the African spirit is preserved in the arts. Register on Eventbrite to be one of our virtual audience. See you at the Space, a place for me and you on Zoom, Facebook, and YouTube.
This is my song called Eyes on Down. For the children, especially your eyes on the vintage Harlem as the timeless music plays. Savor all the flavor of the Harlem yesterday. Got the dance in your eyes.
Welcome to The Space. I am your host, Joyce Adewumi. This is our maiden edition, and it is our honor to start off this series that showcases African descendants who have contributed to knowledge in the arts with Miss Emme Kemp. Miss Emme Kemp is a musical icon. She's a pianist, composer, singer, actress, a researcher on the world's music, and more. Born in Chicago, a child prodigy from age of 3 years old, she grew up with the good time gospel and blues, recorded with the ragtime master, U.B. Blake, on his own EBM label. Miss Kemp achieved so much more before the magic of Harlem pulled her in, and she contributed lyrics and music for and acted with the original Broadway production of Bubbling Brown Sugar. This international performer studied at Northwestern University, Berklee College of Music, and New York University. She played at Carnegie Hall with the New York University Jazz Ensemble and has appeared on numerous college campuses and at jazz festivals. Miss Kemp's lectures and writings form a significant overview on popular culture. Baltimore Sun wrote of Miss Kemp, one of the most accomplished female multi-talented artists in the business. Miss Emme Kemp is all music. Now let's welcome to the space, Miss Emme Kemp.
Thank you, and thank you so much for welcoming me here. You are the founder of the New York African Chorus Ensemble, and yourself a composer and wonderful singer as well. Spreading your knowledge as well and your talents around. Thanks for coming to Harlem, which is where I live right now.
Thank you so much, Miss Kemp. But we're here to talk about you, Miss Kemp. We want to hear about your musical journey and your contributions to knowledge, which I know are very many.
Well, I'm seeking knowledge everywhere I can get it. And I thank God for virtual broadcasts because I saw a wonderful broadcast last night by a fabulous gentleman who is a percussionist because he is also a pianist and he also plays other rhythm instruments and can tell you where those rhythms came from, where in Africa especially, such as, yes, in Congo, in Brazil, how they got there through other people, such as the yes, the people that sent them there to build another extension of themselves. But African people have always been themselves and the first to say, accept Christianity, the Ethiopians. But there were so many brilliant people that came out, and in fact, from Ethiopia even, and helped to design programs having to do with laying out of cities, the physical layout, the architectural layout. And I'm just glad to say that I'm happy for whoever I'm mixed up with, because I intend to try to mix that popular. Sometimes it's unpopular to say we are all brothers and sisters, but I go that way all the time. And I'm related to you, Joyce. I'm related to the universe. We are universal children. And if we love, we're doing the right thing. And that's our credo, love.
Absolutely.
Joy.
Absolutely. And
Peace. Thank you.
you're very welcome. You're very an eclectic musician. Um, I've heard you play jazz, gospel, blues. I even heard you play salsa. How did you come about to
Actually, I'm
play
so
salsa?
salsa too. Also salsa too. Let's really go back to actually an African actually it's established, brought to around. I love to call it the Caribbean Crescent. I
Mm,
just sound like the sound of the word Caribbean Crescent. Yes,
mm,
but those who were sent that particular route, they came down to Cuba,
mhm.
and then from Cuba it became going north again. Up it became called salsa. Uh, Joe Chambers did not necessarily break it down that closely, and he certainly didn't use Caribbean Crescent. But I thought of that several years ago and gave it to that title. I love that title. If nobody likes it, I'm sorry. But so many things did come from the Caribbean, and those were African root presence. And I just say Presents. And I believe that my being here tonight is a present for me because I deserve it.
You
I
did.
worked long and hard,
Yes, you did.
celebrating 75 years as a musician and loving it. And that's not the only thing I did, but I was trying to learn to do something else as well. And in that particular way, I became a little bit familiar with the internet, which we got to know now to know what we need to know.
Wow. 75 years on the keyboard and still going strong. And you know about Zoom. You're Zooming with us. And you're also recording artists. Can you tell us some things about that? You being a recording artist.
Well, the thing about it is, as U.B. Blake did, he was quite up in age when he did establish his U.B. Blake Music, which EBM, and Mabel Lee, who was a fabulous forerunner of the Josephine Baker type, which is really glamour, but really talent along with it and ability to dance. Mabel was out of my parents' hometown, Atlanta, Georgia.
Mm.
And with this pandemic, with us being sort of locked in together, we can have more time now to ask Uncle, whatever his name might be, can you help us trace our family tree and see
Mm.
who, and they may not have just all been from Africa, for example. One may have been or somewhere in something like British Parliament,
Mhm.
because there were those who came from other places, from in Africa, actually, in the Indies, as we know. West Indies, as they're called, or actually some that are not West Indies, but if we say Puerto Rico, yes, the mixture of the indigenous peoples there.
Mhm.
They were in Suriname, where I happen to be, which is where I think the rivers kind of converge there. The river starts going back the other way, and I was on that particular river, an offshoot of it, because I'm not a Margaret Mead by any means, but I do have this quest for knowing where this is, where it came from, and who did it. Because of that, I was able to see actually one of the ceremonies that followed from Africa to the New World, so to speak. This was not necessarily allowed by the officials there, the political officials, because at that time, Sudan was definitely totally under Dutch, you can say, rule. But what I'm about is also freedom. Freedom to play whatever. I chose to try to learn to play. But if you had, say, a very conservative grandmother like my mother's mother, if you were brought up in the Baptist church, as I was, you didn't necessarily like Granny hear that you had actually captured those same rhythms in your gospel playing. She wasn't interested in that. All she knew was that she felt the spirit, and that is the foundation of African music, perhaps the foundation of many other musics as well. But the rhythm has, in fact, trademarked, in a sense, for some countries who chose to have it that way. That's the Latino community, as it's mightily called. But there's another gentleman who's decided to use another term, but I just call that the Caribbean crest. I think it's kind of pretty. But we can have here, if you do a little bit of salsa, which I do in bubbling brown sugar, sometimes a later version. And then I go into the theme song. We've got bubbling brown sugar, if you want to jump and shout. Bubbling brown sugar, love is what I'm all about. We've got bubbling brown sugar, bubble with a happy beat. Bubbling brown sugar is definitely fun to drink. How it makes you feel, how it makes you feel, how it makes you feel. It's great to be alive. And you be live to be 100. Work on it. Seniors, don't give it up, baby. I'm pushing 85. Wow.
That is beautiful. Wow, wow. Well, I know that you're going to be here for many, many, many more years.
Well, I've got a lot of things to learn, Joyce. That's the thing about it.
That's it.
I got to learn some more.
Yes.
And get better at computer.
Yes. So how did you come to be involved in Bubbling Brown Sugar? You just gave us a little bit of this music. This was the song that you composed. Yes.
Yes. The lyrics and music are both mine, and it was actually a show-stopping choreographic work that Billy Wilson did the choreography on.
Yes.
Danny Holgate was the music director for the show, Bubbling Brown Sugar, and along some way in one of the programs, anyway, the one that was Washington D.C., where he was too busy to go there, I did have on the program the assistant music director, but I don't consider myself a music director as such. I played for many people, many different kinds of music, oratorio. I played for classes, in fact, when I was in Evanston going to school. That was my first foray into actually harmony. My brother, when I was in grammar school still, had said to me, "Had you asked your teacher, Mr. McDonald, to give you some keyboard harmony?" Well, the thing about it is, at this particular time, I'm still learning. It might not be called keyboard harmony. It's sometimes they call it theory. Sometimes they call it other things, but it's the same thing. Idea of learning the root of whatever chord, and people are much more chordally attuned. Miss Mabel Lee was one of the ones that, although she was a dancer, she also understood the tone qualities and how they made people feel. And the fact that Harlem is such a mixture of different ingredients, people from different places, from different cultures, till it's got all the rhythms going at the same time, which is another thing that African rhythms do. If they're coming from Brazil, as the bossa nova. One of the rhythms that was especially lifted up at one of the jazz festivals, Monterey Jazz Festival, when I was down there. One of the things that I did was produce shows for the military at Fort McClellan, Alabama. That was the job they gave me. Okay, from Fort McClellan my last place that I went when I was discharged, when I joined from San Francisco, because I lived in the East Bay and the West Bay of California at a particular time. Well, I'll go back to that a little bit too. The kinds of people that you do come in contact with, those who may not have the same, you're only maybe 14 or 15, but these political issues fly by your head, whether you're voting or not at that age. And I knew that my particular area was Republican. I might texture at civics, or as they called it at that time, letting you know what's going on in the cities or the city where you live.
Right.
He was in Oakland, California, and there were many people from different Asian territories, because we know that many Japanese people stayed there after WW2, went back or tried to go back to the lands that had been taken from them. This is not the same thing as slavery, but as a concentration camp in a sense. There are some things that America has done that are similar to other places. They may call it something else. It has some of the same emotional throwback and drawback and later life feeling, certainly. And it also intensifies your feeling that you're going to let everyone, Kobe Narita, who's done a lot for many people, in jazz especially, but she loves all music. And she is a woman of Japan, born in the States, but she was sent to a concentration camp. They didn't call it that, holding camp, because this was supposed to be not safe for them to be on the West Coast out there in San Francisco and the West Coast. Yes, it is on the way to Asia. We have to not be as fearful, but we must be cautious and must be watchful. When there is any threat that comes up that will keep any American person especially from not being able to be free. Now I'm going to go right on down to women now. And how did I get to be the kind of person who is kind of at heart one who advocates for this or that cause? I want to remind you, if you don't know, that the 8th of March is usually, and has been proclaimed, International Women's Day.
That's correct.
And I believe the UN was the one that said that. All right. So I want you not to forget that and think about some of our native, born in America, but we can't tell where they were from, where the African mixture in their ethnicity. There was a woman named Ida B. Wells, and there was an Ida B. Wells project. Many of us here in the city, and this is a city of all kinds of dwellings, but the public dwelling, they call them in some places by another name, but it's allowing people who may not have quite enough money to afford someplace that's expensive to live in what they call a project. That's what they were called at that time. In the 40s, they were called projects. They also had arts programs out of these areas that were like the Ida B. Wells project was on the south side of Chicago. And I remember passing it. I didn't know at that time who Ida B. Wells was. Ida B. Wells said, hanging people or lynching is an abomination. Well, she got run out of Tennessee because she was a journalist as well, a fearless journalist. And I want to laud the women who stand up for being part of whatever they feel is really right. And women, we're the ones that still have the babies, I'm not saying men are not important.
Right.
But do we want our boys, our men, our babies to go off to war? And we may be wonderful, we may be triumphant, but let's be triumphant in peace sometime. This started out for South Africa's wonderful and America's first African-American president. It's for all of us who say we want peace, women and men. We are women with hands that the world can rely on. We are women with stands that we dare live or die on. Women with pride. Aside from that, we can plan for each task in advance. We do grocery lists, we do rent lists. We imagine those charge cards like champions. Women who are wise, governed by reason. We plan, sometimes in advance, for each job in the season. Proud, yet no more. And though stumble. We don't stop from going ahead with saying, no more of that. Give us victory. Give us victory. Give us victory. Peace. Peace. Got it? Peace.
You are an amazing pianist. Oh, it's such a joy to have you here today.
Well, I'm having a good time myself.
Yes, do you know that this is the maiden edition of the space? And we felt that it was you that we wanted to honor us. We wanted to honor you.
Well, I am so honored, and I am delighted. I'm just tickled. I use that word, like tickled. That's my word. I am tickled to be here. I'm joyful to be here, and let us bring joy to the children of the world.
Yes.
Joy to the world, all the boys and girls. Joy to the world, joy to you and me. Joy to the world, all the boys and girls. I came to New York not because of the bright lights. People said you must have wanted to be a Broadway composer. I wanted to be a composer who had music sung and played. And if you stay in a place that's your home all the time, you don't see other places. You hear last night, like they said, well, we were born in the area of Pittsburgh, or we were in the area of Ohio, but we wanted to come to see the lights of freedom. Ballad of Box Brown is one of the selections that I wrote music for, written by Dr. Milton Posty. Hey, Milt, are you out there in the Midwest someplace? I was told they need more of your kind of thinking, your kind of action, like everybody's a friend, until proven otherwise. And then you just kind of accept them for what they are, what they seem to be, and try to find your spiritual observation of them, which is what you do when you have your Down by the Riverside edition. I say, come on and go with me down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. Come and go with me down by the riverside. Let's study 101. I ain't gonna study where my tambourine. I ain't gonna study where's my tambourine. I ain't gonna study more, no more. Let's study peace. How to do that? I ain't gonna study. Study peace. Study peace. No. Study more, no more. Study more, no more. They can say, oh, we're pacifists. No, not really. Joe and second president here, vice president, speaking women in the forefront and in the back part, women behind the men. Michelle Obama, Medgar's wife, I was so proud to be sitting next to her. I'm going to quiet it down a little bit now and go back to my original thought of being a composer in New York. Not necessarily Broadway composer, but here's one song that was published by Frank Lesser. Give me your hand, come and join my traveling band. Reach on out to every man, spread some love wherever you can. Never again carry sadness. Now you got friends, share your gladness. Loneliness in when you join our traveling band. If you are cold, you'll be warm there. Don't be afraid, there's no harm there. People who care will be there to lift you up if you should fall. Don't fall, stand up straight now. move ahead, one and all. Join our laughter, bring it on out, forever after. Open their hearts, join their hands all over the land. Come and join my traveling band. I found out what I really thought about freedom. What I really thought about having someone tell me that, no, you can't do it that way. My brother who's also behind bars maybe sometimes. I'm thinking about him too. But I wasn't thinking about breaking out of jail. But they told me if you're going to be a staff writer for this company, you've got to join the opinions of others. I chose not to be a staff writer at that time. And I wrote, one and all, stretch your mind out over the wall. This is not adequate, this is not everybody. Your mind's the wall. One and all, stretch your mind out over the wall. This is the physical. Go and learn somewhere wherever it is. Be it The Hague, be it in Berlin, be it in Georgia. One and all, stretch your mind out over that wall of your mind. Go and find them. You might love these people, they love you. They're God's people. Come and join my traveling band. Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Oh, amazing, amazing. So, Ms. Kemp, you are teaching us that the secret to longevity is that we have to remain active, learn new things, keep the brain working and working, just like you are constantly working. I hear that you have a program for children as well that you want to now share with our children.
One of the things about, yes, I want to teach the basic characteristics of being a really contributing member of society. Not society, meaning that I have to put on my best ball gown and be presented to society. We're talking about, if you learn how to be a friend. We can start with that. Maybe you don't have any next door neighbors living close to you, but if you just for fun say, what is the meaning of a friend? Is a friend somebody who lends you money? Maybe is a friend somebody that you can have fun with if you're a child. And I want to have a children's program to begin with. It can be virtual, as we are now. The main thing is that we communicate, and there's not enough communication between ages, but parents and children, babies know who their mommy are. Mommy means something to them. And the first virtual recording or broadcast that I did, it didn't become a broadcast until later. And it was edited by a woman who has a program on a channel that comes on every other week. And I was on this particular week with my program, which began because it was March 4th that it was taped, 2020. It's March 4th, 2020, my mother's birthday. Mommy, every child can relate to their mommy. What I want you to know is, I would like to explore why some children are troubled at birth, pre-birth angst. Freedom, I'm about freedom. Freedom from fear of failure. Freedom from things like dependencies. My grandmother was a coffee drinker, and some people can't let that coffee, that cigarette, that whatever it is, go. You're stronger than it is. You are a royal child, not necessarily kings and queens. I'm talking about beyond that, the spiritual childhood. This is why we have to try to keep them safe from these bumps, these exposures to things that are not exactly the thing for them. Give them a chance to see what the friend is come with the family. Oh, I don't have a family. So-and-so is gone to, no, come on, ride with us. The first song they told me I played, kind of played, sounded like I played, was a lesson that my brother had up on the piano. You see, I was 3 around there, and it sounded like I played something like this. Home is my favorite place to be. Give me a home where the buffalo roam, where the dear little antelope play. We're not gonna see many antelope around right now, you know. What do you call it? Seldom is heard. It is encouraging word. The skies are not cloudy all day. Kind of country sounding. Rock and roll here. Chip. That little rhythmic thing. Deer and antelope play. That's what they say. Where seldom is heard a discouraging word. Getting up Tennessee there. In the blind dance hour. As I said, Chicago has all kinds of music. Saturday night. National Barn Dance Hour. In the store. There was a wonderful singer, jazz singer. Her name was Carmen McRae. She was called as hip as anybody could be. Sarah Vaughan, the same generation. But Carmen did a song in the country vein called, well, I'm not going to call the full name of it, but I say an old blues bass. And the triplet. Sammy Davis, the hippest mole, sang a song called A Legend in My Time. So I'm not going to put down any category. Second violin in Chicago, in the high school orchestra. And I also wrote my own waltzes. This one called Come Dance With Me. My grandmother did a dance that she called a schottisch.
Oh.
It may have been that was really Scottish. Yeah.
Oh.
Somebody's giving me a little attention right here. Yes, what is it, honey? What am I doing wrong? What am I doing right? Stop it or keep on?
Everything is going well.
Okay. Talking about genealogy. It could be that my great-great-grandfather was from Scotland. Because somehow, when I was living in San Francisco, Haight Street was right around the corner. It was a time when people going up in the air. I I'm talking about space. Space. And your program is called Space?
That's correct. It's called the space.
Space, yes. A place to examine all kinds of things.
Yes.
Space where? Did we know about hidden figures? Because there was a woman contingent in space exploration. Don't forget that girls, you can want to be scientists, yes. All right? You're Miss Tomorrow's Woman. And there was a Mr. Tomorrow waiting for you. One of my songs again called Tomorrow's Woman is reaching for the sky. She's gonna make it. I know the reason why. No one can tell her again. It's not for you, girl. Because she's figured out. Learns what to do, girl. She's not afraid now. She knows what she's about. Her dues are paid now. Harry Tubman, thank you for doing it for us. Sun is coming out. She swears to find tomorrow. She swears to find tomorrow. She will find tomorrow on her own. 2 hours woman. Not that we want to stand alone, but if we have to. 2 hours woman. We were making rivets for flying things, flying trains, flying airplanes, being pilots. In fact, as I'm told, not the first woman that was of color owned her own airplane, as we know about Bessie Coleman, who was a barnstormer. Jeanette Harmon Bragg made it possible for a number of the men in Chicago to get their wings. We have wings. We're born with wings. We're supposed to soar. So don't forget, when it looks like you're down and out, just you call my name. Emme. When? Mommy's always there. Daddy's always there. Don't forget, you got a friend. Stretch your mind out. Go and find out.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Yes.
Wow. Let's talk a little bit about the pandemic. You mentioned it a little when we first started.
Yes.
How has the pandemic affected your performance? Because I know you used to have a very heavy performance schedule.
Yes.
Yes.
We loved it. All the performers loved it. It might be hectic, but we loved it. And we want to see it come back in intensity as well. Many different kinds of places. There are even more places now that will be, I think, after this, because people will start enjoying more kinds of things that are communal rather than you do it by yourself.
That's so cool.
And I'm happy to hear that.
Yes.
And feel that. A friend of mine, John Eames, who created his own atmosphere with people coming into his atmosphere, created what he called parlor jazz. Marge Elliott, another, also a playwright, multi-talented artist, with her family, her son playing piano every Sunday there. That's another kind of in the parlor, in the heart, in the community, in the home gathering that the pandemic has made more common. Because here we are, you where you are, I'm where I am, and we are definitely communicating as family. Again, my favorite place to be is home. And I didn't come here thinking about, I'm going to have virtual, because virtual and really, I think, been around. Certainly not for people having to be together. They don't have any choice. You got to stay in there and wear your mask also. You know, I don't care if it is your cousin, put your mask on. 7 feet away, all right. I think following some of these rules are certainly necessary, and we cannot ignore them. There are health rules and to keep our populations pumped up rather than growing smaller and smaller, because we had to say sometimes some of us had to leave a certain country because they said, oh, you're carrying it. How do you know I've got that? And but I'm not the one that brought it. No. My neighbors who were adventurous, and I want to applaud them and to recognize them, and their father, who was a father to many, right across the street here, Riverbank State Park. Every year there was a high school or lower school if you were ready for it. You could be counseled to the next level that you're going to go to. He was about that. That's what social workers are for. What they do, they kind of edge you on. We know that you're supposed to have this little, whatever it is, left over from when you were in your childhood, and they gave you this or that. That happens too often. Don't let that happen. We're not living on pills. We're living on skills. Okay? And it was possible for us. I don't have any children, blood children, that is. I call them all my children. I feel that way about them. But he was out there. He was sunny with with other people that were interested, and the children in our community especially. But they could come from anywhere and go to that. It was about teaching them how to be able to present a resume, what you have done, what you would want to do, what you think you're good at. We can find a place for you to be allowed to be an intern. There are things that are offered. The only thing about this particular situation, I'm talking about this particular family and father, they did go to a place that somehow they contracted some, again, disease.
Oh dear.
And it was really important because it was heavy equipment. Now, when you're going to an underdeveloped, in a sense, they do not have the economy of a steel mill such as Illinois and Indiana, because I know about those places out there where I came from. You hear these boom, boom, boom sounds because these are these furnaces.
Right.
They are letting the heat out like that.
Right.
Yeah, like that. What was that? And she never told me what. Maybe she never even thought about it. But it's something that becomes music to your ears. Everything becomes music to mine, and also to people who are in the arts, to musicians especially. How the steel drum that we know from, especially there in not in Jamaica, but Trinidad. We know that I was told that those drums that explode in the heat give out different tones, and then the people that were musical, they had a musical there, whatever that tone was, tune these things up, and by the
There was
time
also water in glass.
yes, what? Yes, right. I'm going to go back to my glass song, which has to do with microscopes. Okay, this is another one that I did on Captain Kangaroo, and it can be seen on another program that's in what you call a pitch, to see whether or not there is sponsorship out there anywhere for me. I love to eat, so maybe there's some company. Some company that produces wholesome food. Now we don't want some special stuff that has some like substitutes like plastic. So I mean, at least I can tell phony food when I taste it. Yes, okay. So I love loving food. I also like to make sure that it's something that is good for internally. My goddaughter, Miss Gwen Black, follows up how many grams of this and such, how much. But that's nothing silly. Pay attention to that because there's too much diabetes around.
That is true.
In the African American community, in the Hispanic community, or those that have been influenced by Rome and Spain, in every day for children, they're not as much candy, not as much sweet stuff. Honey, okay, honey, all right. But we have to look after ourselves, not just depend on those who have been working on the particular inoculation for the pandemic. And there's a particular company that I want to mention my favorite little doctor, Dr. Hawk, H-A-W-K. Can you believe somebody's last name like that? I don't know, it might have been short for Hawkins, you know. But the point is that she's Dr. Hawk and she's dynamite. She also learned to play drums with a Spelman College band. Okay. You're talking about swing now. The WW2 song from the swing era, as they call it. Benny Goodman being called the king of swing. And there is a gentleman. What'd you say? Somebody talking to me?
No, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Okay. All right. I don't know about the kings and queens things, but Lionel Hampton was in the doing his vibes thing. Teddy Wilson was playing piano, and I was fortunate enough to sing a couple of times with the Lionel Hampton Orchestra. We need people that will intercede for us. If that's not intervene and intercede, I think it's close enough. There was a friend of Lionel's who was a lovely collector. She loved art. She was out of Pittsburgh. And coincidentally, her daughter just had a love affair from childhood for Africa. So she ended up going to Africa, staying there. And then next thing you know, she's still there.
Wow.
But my friend who was one who collected art and who definitely supported it, she lived on 145th Street, right up the street here. She became another last name, but when she was in Pittsburgh, it was Mrs. Fitzgerald. And she was then a connoisseur and a patron of the arts. And that's where I first met, I auditioned for Lionel Hampton, that's right. But it took a few years for me to finally sing with his band. And that was only because I think a friend of mine, who was a friend of Mrs. Originally was from Pittsburgh, name was Fitzgerald, knew Lionel Hampton well, and she put my name in. This is what you need: someone, if it's not a real sponsor, who say pays for your music lessons or pays for you to get your college education, whatever it is. It's someone who will, in a sense, be a sponsor.
Right.
And that's what another lady that I met after my mother died. I was 10 at the time, and one of the highlights of my meeting people, or even seeing them close enough to say, I sat next to Merle Evers. Yes, she knew what it was like to be left a widow. But she was a strong woman. Thank God for all of you women out there, and all of you men who lose your relatives as well. But for a woman, that's the daddy part is gone. Daddy's gone. Okay, we got to carry on from there. But I wanted to say that it was a joy and an honor for me to also sit behind Bishop Tutu's, the way it was set up at St. John the Divine. Those I'd never seen as many people in there before. This was for a memorial for a lady who thought, even though I don't think she was born in Harlem, but her family was maybe the second real estate company. And there were sisters from her mother's side that were their father was the founder of a real estate company. And this young woman who went to NYU, I didn't know her from there, but I knew her from a couple of the things I'll tell you about. She had more people there than I'd ever seen at Cathedral of St. John the Divine. I know that there were more at Duke Ellington's. I wasn't there for that, but I did enable someone from another country to be seated because I had been there as an observer, and I had been there as one who wanted to present an art show in the gallery at St. John the Divine. It never happened. But another friend of mine who was baptized at Cathedral of St. John the Divine had spoken about doing a jazz presentation there. And she would have if she lived. But anyway, she's gone now, but there would still be more jazz than has been. But there has been jazz since at St. John the Divine. And we're grateful for the churches, the Christian community that up in Westchester. They have jazz periodically there. There's a Jazz Vespers in New Jersey. And there has the first Jazz Vesper I knew about was at St. Peter's Lutheran Church. That is where I sat at the foot of Duke Ellington. And I didn't have sense enough to say, could I play one of my compositions for you? I was just so, I guess shy and just by who he was. I had met him before, but I couldn't, one opportunity. It was at the church that was actually a Jewish church, synagogue, really, across the street from where St. Peter's was eventually built. And that's where they were holding the service. And this had been the meeting in that room. And everyone had cleared out. And Duke was sitting back, relaxing a bit. And I just sat down on the floor beside it. And I said, what's your favorite wine? I could have said, would you listen to one of my compositions? I mean, you go blank at the most important moments. And sometimes you say no when the answer should be yes. Or let me tell you. But anyway, going back to my trek along this way, my journey. I've said some no's when they maybe should have been yeses. But we watch that too, and we ask our divine overhead. I might want to say that's up in the clouds, but our spiritual father and parents and guide to tell us, to lead us in the right direction. Not be too hasty, but think about it and pray about it.
That is
If you,
that is deeply African. Our spiritual father and mother and God.
yes,
That is
yes.
absolutely deeply African. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. And some of that, no matter who the Orisha or whatever the designation of the parent, the divine, the spiritual parent.
Miss Kemp, you're too much. What don't you know?
Well, I try to listen a lot. I don't eavesdrop. But Gwen is one who has all these wonderful webinars and all these things on the computer. And I listen to that. Wow, if I'd only known that, I could have had 20 of my poems already printed. But I really did start this 20 poems by Emme Kemp called Echoes Out of Time as far back as 1964.
Wow.
And that was because I was in Chicago at the home of my fourth grade teacher, and her house was a couple of blocks from where Bubbling Brown Sugar was playing.
Okay.
At that time. That theater is not used anymore for that. But it was that theater was at that time the one that played in Chicago before it went to Toronto. And that's another story too, of being cared for over your shoulder. You're not alone. You are cared for through your spirituality yourself. You are knowing that I am attached to my father, mother, and whatever you want to call it, the designation. Yes.
Yes.
And it is in African societies as well as in others.
Yeah.
But the deep root is from, if you are African American, from where it came from. When there was field time, work in the field. You had to be out there in that hot sun. Okay. So maybe you were more suited for it than the indigenous population, which would have been Native American. Now, I don't know what they raised in Indiana, but also I can tell you about a composer that I want to combine in my putting together a program. It would be the music of Cole Porter.
Oh.
That's one. And then the guy that wrote Guys and Dolls, that's Frank Lesser. And it was his publishing company that did publish my first published piece. And that was called Traveling Band, which I just did a little bit of for you. This is another thing that you learn as you go along. I did not know they were going to make a octavo arrangement of Traveling Band. Nobody told me. Maybe that's part of being part of, say, if I'm on the staff, I know because there's another writer that put a change in the lyric that I wanted, one line. And that is why I did not want to, at that time, decide I wanted to be a staff writer for this company. Because that line was important to me, because I'm talking about stretch your mind out, not break out of wherever you are incarcerated, or whether or not your mother says, no, you can't go to the movies tonight because you did so and so. You got to stay in here. In other words, you are, in sense, our property for right now until you straighten up and understand what you're supposed to do. No.
Well, I think that a proper way to end this program is on spirituality that you talked about.
Yes.
That's a proper way to end it. And I wanted to really thank you.
Well, I'm so happy to be here, as I said.
For coming.
And thank you.
And sharing your wisdom with us. We have come to the end of our program, but Ms. Kemp, I can have you on every day.
Oh, well, another time is good enough. You just let me know in advance, and I'll narrow it down a little bit more. But I wanted to get that seeing, hearing, feeling, that sensitizing.
Well, if you allow us to bring you back, we'd love to have you back again.
I'll come.
Okay. So thank you so much for sharing your music, your wisdom, and your knowledge with us.
And you can contact me, whoever might be listening, on my little website. It's called Emme Kemp All Music, and that's exactly what we meant.
Yes,
And
sir.
Emme Kemp allmusic.com.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much. The space is presented on the
So
last
good night.
Saturday of every month. I'm sorry, Ms. Kemp?
I'm going to say good night, and I'm going to end this with something that if you were from Chicago and it came back to some people. The rhythm again of the drum. And they might call it non-musical music. This was the theme of first deliverance. Precious memories they linger. They ever flood my soul. Secrets still unfold. Lord, I need an answer. He left me, but that's all right. Tell him don't worry. Come on, sing with me. Give me that drum. Tell me. Oh, there. Bessie, I'm talking to you. But my soul. I'm talking about you, Lord. You can give me the answer, not him. Oh, not my mama. You can tell me what to do. Precious secrets still unfold. Shall I go to Africa? Yeah. Sacred secrets. Hey. Sacred secrets. Come on, Leon, tell us where we are. Sacred secrets still unfold. 16. Oh yeah. Can I get an oh yeah? Can I get an oh yeah? Can I get an oh yeah? Oh yeah. Carry on. African chorus ensemble.
Amazing, amazing. You've given us 75 years of music, and we still have many, many, many more years left to enjoy your composition, your playing, your words of wisdom, and so much more. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, all of you.
Thank you.
Blessings on you and your house.
Thank you.
Everybody should have a home.
The space is presented on the last Saturday of every month at 5 p.m. For more information, please check us out at www.thespaceseries.com. Join us tomorrow at 4 p.m. for a special Q&A with Nigerian Kings and the cast of We Are the Endless Roar. That's tomorrow, February 27 at 4 p.m. You can find out more information about this program at www.thespaceseries.com. Thank you for joining us at The Space, a place for me and you on Facebook and Zoom. This program is supported in part by public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council. Additional support provided by Fund for the City of New York, Howard Gilmore Foundation, New York Community Trust, the Mosaic Network, and WQXR-FM is our media partner. Listen to WQXR, New York's only classical music radio station, live now at 105.9 FM, nwqxr.org, and sign in for the WQXR e-newsletter for weekly highlights, links to web streams, on-demand concerts, videos, events from the Green Space, and more. This has been your host, Joyce Adewumi, founder of New York African Chorus Ensemble. And we want to thank our tech in the background, including Malika Harris. Thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow, February 27th, as we host Nigerian Kings and the cast of We Are the Endless Roar. The time again is 4 p.m. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again. Bye for now.